and welcome back to the Combo Couch. I'm Fiorella.
And I'm Pasta Jardula.
So, Syria is a very complicated subject, and because it's so complicated, it's very easy to manipulate a narrative and only speak about one viewpoint. The establishment has been doing this for a very long time now, and it's starting to come out. Recently, on MSNBC, on Morning Joe, there was a segment in which a professor from Columbia University named Jeffrey Sachs, he went on kind of like a rant about Syria that completely contradicted the claim that, oh, yes, it's absolutely okay for us to send missiles. It's absolutely okay for us to invade. So it was very jarring and very interesting to see the reaction of the pundits as he started speaking about this. And it's important to point this out because not many people know about this incident. So we wanted to talk about Syria, and it's going to take a few segments and a few videos for us to actually talk about it because it's a very complicated subject. But I want to start out by quoting what Mr. Sachs said because it is very important and basically summarizes the entire reason we're in Syria and the entire reasons that we continuously advocate for regime changes and that keeps us and how that keeps us in perpetual war. So he said, we started a war to overthrow a regime. It was covert. It was Timber Sycamore. People can look it up. The CIA operation. Together with Saudi Arabia. Still, it's shrouded in secrecy, which is part of the problem in this country. A major war effort shrouded in secrecy. Never debated by Congress. Never explained to the American people.
Never.
Signed by President Obama, never explained. And this creates chaos. And so just throwing more missiles in right now is not a response. We need to go to the UN Security Council, as the Admiral says. We need to go to agree with Russia on a strategy for ending the fight. But ending the fight means that we stop trying to overthrow a government. That we stop trying to support rebels who are committed to overthrowing the government. That is where this war continues. Because we, to this day, back rebels that are trying to overthrow a government. Contrary to international law, contrary to the UN Charter, contrary to common sense, we can't do it. And it's just creating an ongoing crisis to the extent of facing an imminent confrontation with Russia.
Can I say something about this right now after that big thing? It's amazing to me because you know what? It's not even like a conspiracy theory anymore. It's just out in the open.
Right.
I mean, the deep state is thriving. You know, as you're reading this, when you start off and you say the word CIA, my hair starts to cringe on my back because they're at it again. And Timber Sycamore was started by Obama, like you just quoted. But you know when it ended? July 2017, under Donald Trump, it was defunded. I mean, Timber Sycamore was stopped. I mean, really? I mean, is the world not turned upside down?
Right.
and you know, just to think that we keep pointing the finger at certain these people, it just seems like the neocons are in control of our government, whether it be Barack Obama or George Bush. I don't know if Donald Trump's finishing up Bush's third term or Obama's third term, especially when it comes to war. It's sickening, and it's sickening what we did in Syria, which I might want to add to those people across Middle America, had a lot of Christians in Syria, like a lot of Christians in northern Iraq. So the religious folks, it's time to open your eyes when it comes to that. You know what is also a little bit kind of disturbing about this whole situation is that the facets that we funded were al-Nusra, which is also a division of Al-Qaeda. We're funding the same people who attacked us on 9/11.
We're funding the same people, and then it gets so convoluted that the CIA is funding one group in the Northwest, and then the Pentagon is funding another group, and they in turn end up fighting each other.
The opposing groups.
And it's absolutely ridiculous. And no one knows about this because they don't talk about it on MSNBC. This guy, you could see their faces are like, whoa. And they brought it back each time he was talking about the fact that we need to stop our lust for war and our regime changes. They brought it back to, well, I get what you're saying of
but
this war fatigue, this Middle Eastern fatigue, he called it. And it's like Middle Eastern fatigue?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Do you know it's been 10 years?
Can I ask you a question? When the Pentagon funds somebody and the CIA funds somebody, who pays for that?
The American people pay for that.
Wow. Your military budget at work, that I might add that the Democrats, with all those people who say, Democrats better than Republicans, your Democrats supported Donald Trump on giving him an extra bloated military budget just so certain individuals of the military-industrial complex can enrich themselves while we pay for both sides of the war with your money. But they don't have any money for education. They don't have any money for Medicare?
No, they don't. And this all goes back also, and not to bring back Clinton, but it does go back to Hillary Clinton.
Yes, it does.
There was a negotiation with UN Special Envoy Kofi Annan, and she basically did everything she could to prevent this from happening. So that failed. There was no... it was basically her responsibility that this failed. And because of that, and this is old information now, because at that point, there was at least 10 million Syrians that were displaced and at least 250,000 dead. And since then, it's only increased.
Yeah. The country's in ruins. I mean, it's the country's in ruins. And here's something else, too. The third chemical attack that we just seen these missiles go off on my birthday, nevertheless. Happy 45 for me. I know, right? We're firing missiles at Damascus on your birthday.
You can be president
Terrible.
now.
I know, right? Now I can be president. I'll always remember April 14th now from this day when I turned 45. But all three of these chemical attacks, the reason why we're allowed to just set this off, and once again, let's not forget, we're allowed to do this because the AUMF. I heard Tim Kaine complaining about Donald Trump, that it's illegal that he did it and he should have went to Congress. Oh, no. You gave that power to Barack Obama that was once given to George Bush Jr., and now you carried it on. And when it's in the power of somebody else, like a Donald Trump, now you want to go back and change your mind? It's too bad. But all three of these chemical attacks have been debunked in one way or another.
Yes, they have been debunked. There is a journalist, I believe his name is... I can't remember. He's a British journalist. He's renowned because he's he speaks Arab, so he's gone in and basically he spoke to all of the people there, and the alleged attacks that people were already talking about who had made it from Dumas to Turkey doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons, but also the fact that how could they have made it there that quickly and already be talking about these chemical attacks? Further, the people he spoke to there had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. They said that there was chaos and there were issues.
Yeah. Just grabbing little boys, putting cold water on them, and the boys didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah, and they said that some people couldn't breathe, but it didn't have anything to do with a chemical attack. And then also, now we go back to the fact that Assad... and I'm going to go back and later on talk about Assad, because Assad is a different special subject. But Assad was already winning the war because apparently Dumas was the last standing
rebel hold. And we got,
So if Dumas is the last standing rebel hold, how the hell is Assad? Why would he do that? Why would he, if he's winning the war, why would he go and unleash a series of chemical attacks against his own people and deny over and over again that he was doing that? It makes no sense.
There's a lot of things that make no sense. We talked about this the other day. We were trying to find for this last missile, and I don't want to dive deep too into this because this is another subject too. We're going to break this up. We're going to talk about Assad. We're going to talk about these different strikes. We're going to talk about debunking of the chemical attacks. We're going to talk about the white helmets. But when we talked just about last week on April 14th, on my birthday, when they had these missile attacks, the Syrian government reported 0 deaths is what I'm seeing once again. 9 injured, 6 soldiers, 3 people. No serious injuries. But then we see multiple reports from other sources, especially from the Western media, that say, oh no, up to 40 died or up to 30 died. So we're not really getting a good count on this. But the Syrian government themselves, I just looked, they reported 9 people injured, no deaths. So it just stinks to high heaven that we would send weapons to a supposed chemical plant, which that's also being debunked, and we have to pay for all this. And what was it for?
And not only that, the media already said that, oh, Russians and Syrians are going to mess with the evidence. Before there was even an investigation on the evidence, they were already alleging that the Russians and the Syrians were tampering with the evidence.
Yeah.
How could you allege that if there's no one there? There were no journalists there. There was no one there. But you're alleging that they're already messing with the evidence.
Yes.
It just doesn't make sense. And it's also the fact that there are other things that are going on in this region. Assad is a secular leader. So
elected leader.
A democratically elected leader, okay? And if you watch him on interviews, which I have watched him on many interviews, when he is asked, the way he is asked questions by the Western media, they basically frame the question to say, well, do you not care about hurting your own people with chemical attacks? And he's like, what are you talking about? I've never done that.
Yeah.
So... And they're like, so you don't care? And he's like, no, I'm just saying you guys are framing this narrative in this way. And who are you to talk? Because you all have been unable to talk about, high moral virtues in warfare since Vietnam. And he calls America out. And the way he speaks about America makes sense to me, because why would I not defend my people against rebels who... armed by a proxy war, basically a proxy army that we created, and it's like, why would I as a leader not defend my people? It just makes no sense, and I think the narrative we are painting is completely false.
I think the important thing to remember is that this is a CIA-led war. Just like it was in Libya. It started with the Arab Spring, and that's when they found the reason to go on in. There's other motives involved. There's, the use of currency, being close with Russia, Syria is. That hurts the United States and the Rothschilds when they can't move their banking systems in there. Also, the oil that's in Syria. Russia gets a hold of that, then China gets a hold of it, whatever the case may be. United States doesn't get a hold of it. So the CIA just seems to be using this as their own playground in Syria, and that's the important thing to look at. If anybody asks you and they say, why are you in Syria? We can never really answer them. The reason is it's about natural resources, it's about oligarchs, it's about their money, and it's just about their greed. And I don't think they're going to stop. So,
and the most important thing to get out of this whole introduction on Syria is the fact that we are being manipulated. And anytime a journalist begins talking about the United States imperialism, our desire for war, and we call out the American government and we call out the American media, which is supposed to be there to protect and represent the American people, but clearly is only there to feed the establishment narrative. When we do that, we are silenced. Many progressive outlets have been attacked. We have been attacked. We have been silenced, attempted to be silenced. And it's important that people begin to not only question what they're hearing in the mainstream media, but also do their own research and seek alternative media that isn't just going to feed them the narrative established by the mainstream, because they are serving the corporate oligarchy. They're serving the military. They have no reason to tell you the truth.
They're paid employees. As simple as it goes. And this is, once again, I just want to point out before we wrap this up, that this isn't like hidden conspiracy theory information. It's out in the open. You can read it about it. You can read about Timber Sycamore. You can read about the gassing attack and how it's kind of debunked. It's out there. Just do your own research. Listen to us. We'll help you out as well. And I think that's good for right now on the Convo Couch. Anything else?
Yes, we'll be talking more about the Arab Spring. We'll be talking a little bit more about how that started and how our involvement in the Middle East is all related, and how it's just been one proxy war after another in an effort to defend our interests, because that's all this is. And they are a threat. Syria is a threat to us because they are an independent country. They are secular and they are willing to fight, and they have Russia and these pipelines at play, and these alliances with Israel that we have because Syria is very supportive of Palestine. And you're not going to tell me that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to talk about. I just wanted to do an introduction, and we'll be talking soon.
More to come on the Combo Couch.